I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I was just standing there when her phone lit up on the kitchen counter. A name flashed across the screen that I didn't recognize, followed by a message preview that made my stomach drop. Last night was perfect. Same place tomorrow? I froze. My aunt, my uncle's wife, was in the next room laughing, talking about vacation plans like nothing in the world was wrong. Her wedding ring caught the light as she gestured, completely relaxed. Completely untouchable. Another message came in before the screen went dark. This one wasn't subtle. It wasn't vague. It wasn't explainable. It was unmistakable. I felt heat rush to my face, then cold. My first instinct was to look away, to pretend I hadn't seen it. But the damage was already done. You can't unread something like that. You can't unknow that the woman who hugs you at family dinners is lying to everyone in the room. Especially to the man who trusts her most. My uncle walked past me seconds later, smiling, asking if I wanted coffee. He looked happy. Secure. Proud of the life he thought he had. And I realized, standing there with my hands shaking, that I was now holding something dangerous. Something that could destroy a marriage. A family. Or me. Because once you're the person who knows the truth, you don't get to be neutral anymore, and no one warned you how heavy that feels. From the outside, my uncle's marriage looked like one of those relationships people quietly envied. They were the couple everyone pointed to as solid. No drama. No public fights. Holiday photos with perfect smiles, arms always around each other. She remembered birthdays, sent thank you cards, hosted dinners that felt effortless and warm. He talked about her with pride, about how lucky he was, how she'd kept everything together. At family gatherings, she played the role flawlessly. Gentle laugh. Thoughtful questions. Always attentive, always supportive. If my uncle spoke, she listened like his words mattered more than anyone else's. If someone complimented their relationship, she smiled modestly, like happiness had just happened to her by accident. People trusted her instantly. My grandmother adored her. My cousins asked her for advice. Even I had defended her in conversations, calling her good for him, calling their marriage healthy. My uncle believed in her completely. You could see it in the way he relaxed around her, how he planned his future with certainty. He never checked her phone. Never questioned her late nights. Never imagined he needed to. That's what made it so disturbing. Nothing about their marriage looked fragile. There were no cracks anyone could point to. No rumors. No warning signs loud enough to justify doubt. Which meant the truth I had seen didn't just contradict appearances, it obliterated them. Because the most convincing lies are always built on something that looks real. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I wasn't looking for anything at all. I was close to them because family made it normal. My uncle trusted me. He'd ask me to house sit when they traveled, pick things up for them, help with small errands when work got hectic. Sometimes I stayed late after dinners, helping clean up while they talked in the living room. Sometimes she and I would sit together scrolling on our phones, sharing nothing more dangerous than recipes or videos. She treated me like an insider. Like someone safe. That's how it happened. Proximity doesn't feel risky when you believe everyone is telling the truth. Phones get left on counters. Notifications pop up without urgency. Conversations pause mid-sentence when someone steps into another room. There was no dramatic setup. No locked door. No secret whispering. Just one careless moment where she assumed no one was paying attention. Family closeness lowered all the guards. It created access without suspicion. Trust did the work secrecy usually has to do. And that's what makes it terrifying, how easily the truth can surface when someone is convinced they're untouchable. She never thought I'd be the one to see it. Never imagined I'd connect the dots. Never considered that being like family meant I was close enough for reality to slip through the cracks. I didn't earn the discovery, I inherited it. Looking back, the signs were always there. They just didn't look like warnings at the time. She was incredibly protective of her phone. Not in an obvious way, no panic, no snatching it away, just small habits that felt normal until they didn't. The screen always faced down. Notifications silenced. If someone picked it up by accident, she'd reach for it casually, smiling, like it meant nothing. She traveled for work more than anyone else I knew, yet somehow never seemed tired from it. There were late evenings explained away with errands that didn't quite add up, dinners she skipped last minute. Stories that changed just enough to feel slippery, but never enough to challenge. And then there was how carefully she managed her image. She talked often about loyalty. About honesty. About how cheating was the one unforgivable thing in a marriage. She said it with conviction, like someone who had rehearsed the speech. I remember once jokingly asking how she and my uncle never fought. She laughed and said, "We just communicate. There's nothing to hide." At the time, I admired that. Now I understand it differently. The red flags weren't loud. They were polished. Designed to blend into a life that looked stable and respectable. That's what made them so easy to miss, and so impossible to ignore once the truth surfaced. Because hindsight doesn't whisper. It confronts you. I told myself it was still possible I was wrong. One message could be explained. A coincidence. A misunderstanding. I wanted that version of reality so badly that I almost convinced myself to let it go. Then I saw the rest. Later that evening, when she stepped into the shower and left her phone charging on the dresser, it lit up again. This time, there was no ambiguity. No room for interpretation. Just a string of messages that told a story she'd never meant anyone to read. There were photos. Intimate. Familiar in a way that only comes from repetition, not a mistake. There were jokes about how careful they had to be. Complaints about my uncle being too trusting. Plans already made, not hypothetical, not vague, specific dates, specific places. One message stopped me cold, "He has no idea. He never will." That was the moment doubt died. This wasn't a slip. This wasn't confusion or loneliness or a marriage in trouble. This was a parallel life, carefully maintained, comfortably hidden. And she was good at it. Proud of it. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down. I felt sick, not just from what I was seeing, but from understanding what it meant. Every smile at family dinners. Every conversation about loyalty. Every time she looked my uncle in the eye. It was all deliberate. The proof wasn't just the messages. It was the ease. The confidence. The complete absence of guilt. I didn't stumble onto a secret, I uncovered a system. And once you see something that complete, you can't pretend it's an accident. I didn't plan the confrontation. It just happened. She came out of the bedroom, towel over her hair, completely relaxed. Talking about dinner like nothing in the world was wrong. And something in me snapped, not in an explosive way, but in a quiet, steady one. I asked her who Mark was. Her smile didn't disappear right away. It softened, like I'd asked something mildly inconvenient. She laughed and said, "Who?" I repeated the name. Slowly. That's when I saw it, not panic, but calculation. A quick assessment of how much I knew and how little she wanted to give away. She told me I must have misunderstood. Said it was a coworker. A joke taken out of context. Suggested maybe I'd seen a message pop up and filled in the blanks because I was tired or stressed. When I didn't back down, she shifted tactics. She sighed heavily, like I was exhausting her. Told me I was invading her privacy. That reading messages, even accidentally, said more about me than her. She asked why I was so eager to see something bad in her. Then came the warning. She leaned in slightly and said, calm and controlled, "You don't want to be responsible for destroying a family over a misunderstanding." Not once did she deny the messages outright. She didn't need to. Because the way she spoke, precise, rehearsed, detached, told me this wasn't the first time she'd talked someone down from the truth. And I realized something chilling in that moment: she wasn't afraid of being exposed. She was confident I'd stay quiet. It didn't take long for the pressure to start. I hadn't even decided what I was going to do yet when my phone began buzzing. One relative after another, all saying different versions of the same thing: slow down, don't rush, be careful. My aunt's sister told me I was reading too much into things. My cousin said marriages were complicated and I shouldn't interfere. Someone else reminded me how much my uncle loved his wife and asked if I really wanted to be the one to break his heart. For the sake of peace, they said. Peace? As if silence was neutral, as if pretending nothing was happening was somehow kinder than the truth. When I tried to explain what I'd seen, the details were waved away. You don't know the whole story. She wouldn't do that. You might be wrong. And then came the guilt. They warned me I'd tear the family apart. That holidays would never be the same. That my uncle might never forgive me. Not her, me. No one asked how it felt to carry this alone. No one asked why the responsibility had landed on me instead of the person lying every day. They just wanted things to stay comfortable. I realized then how families protect appearances, not people. How quickly truth becomes inconvenient when it threatens stability. Staying silent would have been easier for everyone else. Just not for me. That was the worst part, the waiting. Not the fear of confrontation. Not the family pressure. But the quiet moments where I was alone with the truth and no clear answer on what to do with it. Every option felt wrong. If I stayed silent, I became part of the lie. I would sit across from my uncle, listen to him talk about his future, and know I was helping steal it from him one day at a time. I would be choosing comfort over honesty, not for myself, but for everyone else. If I told him, I would be the person who shattered his world. I would be the voice attached forever to the moment his life split in two. I couldn't stop imagining his face when the certainty disappeared, when trust collapsed under its own weight. I went back and forth endlessly. Maybe it wasn't my place. Maybe the truth would come out on its own. Maybe staying out of it was the mature thing to do. But every time I leaned toward silence, something inside me tightened. Because silence didn't feel neutral anymore. It felt like betrayal with clean hands. I realized no one was asking what was right, only what was easiest. And the easiest option always protected the person doing the wrong thing. I didn't want to be brave. I didn't want to be responsible. I just didn't want to be complicit, and slowly, painfully, I understood that not choosing was still a choice. One that I would have to live with. I couldn't hold it in any longer. The weight of the secret had been suffocating me for weeks, and seeing him smile, completely unaware, made it unbearable. I pulled him aside one evening, away from everyone, my heart hammering in my chest. I need to tell you something, about your wife, I said, my voice trembling. At first, he laughed nervously. What is it? Something minor, I hope? But the moment I showed him the evidence, the messages, the photos, the proof I had painstakingly collected, laughter died in his eyes. Silence swallowed the room. I could see him piecing it together, denial and disbelief warring with the obvious truth. No, this isn't possible, he muttered, shaking his head. She wouldn't, she couldn't. I tried to be calm, careful, measured, but the words tumbled out anyway, the truth spilling over like a dam broken. It is possible. It is happening. I'm so sorry, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. He stared at me, pale and wide-eyed, struggling to breathe. I don't know what to say, he whispered. I trusted her. I loved her. How could I have been so blind? I wanted to reach out, to comfort him, but I knew there was nothing to be done yet. The truth was out, undeniable, and it was shattering him from the inside. And in that moment, I realized, telling him was the right thing, no matter the cost. Because he deserved the truth, even if it broke everything. The house felt colder after that night. Even when we were all in the same room, the air carried a tension so thick it was almost physical. My uncle wandered around like a ghost, touching objects, looking at photos, as if trying to reconcile the happy memories with the betrayal I had revealed. I can't believe this, he muttered repeatedly, voice cracking. All this time, she lied to me? To us? Other family members oscillated between disbelief and forced politeness. Some whispered behind closed doors, some avoided eye contact entirely, as if pretending it hadn't happened would make it go away. Aunts, cousins, even my parents, everyone struggled to process it without shattering completely. My uncle tried to speak to her, to demand answers, but her answers were rehearsed, smooth, manipulative. Denial, gaslighting, deflection, the perfect mask she had worn for years now slipping in fragments. He would pause, catch the contradictions, and his hands would clench into fists. His face would fall, and the sorrow in his eyes made my chest ache. Even I felt the sting of helplessness. I had done the right thing by telling him, but witnessing the devastation, the disbelief, the tears, the trembling hands, made me question if the truth was truly a blessing or just another layer of pain, and yet, deep down, I knew it had to happen. The longer lies lingered, the more destructive they became. The truth, as cruel as it was, had finally reached the surface. It didn't take long for her carefully constructed facade to crack. At first, she tried to smile, to charm, to act as if nothing had changed. But the tension, the evidence, the exposure of her secret, it was like a storm tearing through a fragile house of cards. Her polite words turned sharp. Her calm demeanor shifted to irritation, then to outright anger. She accused everyone of misunderstanding, of exaggerating, even of conspiring against her. Gaslighting that had worked so well for years suddenly had no effect on my uncle, who now saw through the layers. "You think you know me?" she snapped one evening, eyes flashing. "You all think you can judge me? You have no idea what I've done, or why." Every interaction became a performance, but one that was unraveling in real time. The warmth and perfection that had fooled the family for so long now felt hollow, almost grotesque. She lashed out at anyone who challenged her, revealing a selfishness and ruthlessness that had been hidden behind smiles and politeness. And I realized something chilling: the person I had uncovered, the one living a double life, had never been who she appeared to be. The lies weren't just acts of infidelity or deception, they were a reflection of a personality that thrived on manipulation, control, and self-preservation. The mask had fallen. And now, there was no going back. The more she tried to maintain control, the weaker her grip became. Every lie she spun, every excuse she offered, only served to expose her further. Family members who had initially wavered, who doubted me or urged silence, began to notice the cracks in her story. It's true," one cousin admitted quietly, avoiding her gaze. I didn't want to believe it, but the proof is all there. Even my uncle, still reeling from the shock, started to regain a sense of clarity. His trust in me grew, not just because I had told him the truth, but because I had stayed consistent, honest, and composed when everyone else faltered. Conversations that once left me dismissed or accused now carried weight. People came to me for details, for guidance, for reassurance. The narrative she had controlled for so long was slipping, and I was the only one who could hold the truth steady. And with each revelation, her charm and authority crumbled. She became defensive, erratic, and increasingly isolated, while I, despite the emotional toll, found a quiet strength in being the voice of reality. For the first time since the discovery, I felt a shift, not of victory, not of triumph, but of balance. The truth had begun to reclaim its power, and with it, a small measure of justice. The fallout was relentless. Once whispers and subtle glances turned into open acknowledgement, her carefully curated reputation lay in tatters. People who had admired her, trusted her, even relied on her, now questioned everything she had ever said or done. Invitations dwindled, casual friendliness disappeared, and those who had once vied for her approval now treated her with wary distance. Family gatherings became tense exercises in diplomacy. My uncle, still heartbroken, tried to navigate a new reality where his trust had been weaponized against him. Relatives shifted their alliances subtly, some supported him quietly, others lingered in the shadows, unsure how to react to a woman who had deceived them all. Meanwhile, I was no longer the troublemaker or the dramatic one. My credibility, painstakingly built through honesty and restraint, grew. People came to me not only for answers but for reassurance that their instincts hadn't failed them. The truth I had carried alone was now shaping the way the family moved forward. And yet, the consequences weren't just external. The emotional damage, the betrayal, lingered like a stubborn shadow. Even with the truth revealed, relationships were strained, trust fractured, and the image of a perfect family had been irrevocably destroyed. It all came crashing down. The lies she had meticulously built over years couldn't withstand the pressure of exposure. Friends, acquaintances, even distant relatives who had trusted her began to see the truth for themselves. Invitations she once received disappeared. Calls went unanswered. The social circle she had curated to protect her image evaporated almost overnight. At home, the facade she maintained for my uncle collapsed completely. No more polite smiles, no more rehearsed charm, only defensiveness, anger, and desperation. Every attempt to regain control backfired, making her erratic and vulnerable. Even the small comforts she once used to manipulate others, flattery, guilt, dramatics, failed. Everyone around her, from family to friends, had started seeing the real person she was, selfish, manipulative, and untrustworthy. And I watched silently, feeling a strange mix of relief and sorrow. Relief that the truth had finally won, and sorrow for the devastation it caused, especially to my uncle. But there was no denying it now, the empire of lies she had built was gone, reduced to fragments of her own making. The double life was over. What remained was raw, exposed, and irreversible. In the aftermath, the house was quieter, but the silence wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that carries the weight of everything lost and every trust broken. I watched my uncle slowly rebuild himself, piecing together his life from the shards of betrayal, and I understood the cost of hidden truths. I also realized the cost of silence. For weeks, I had wrestled with whether to speak up or protect the comfort of others, but remaining quiet would have made me complicit. Silence doesn't just protect peace, it protects those who do wrong, and it punishes those who wait for justice. Being honest wasn't easy. It caused pain, shattered illusions, and strained relationships. But it was necessary. Truth has a weight, yes, but it also has a power that deception never can. It clears the air, restores agency, and prevents lies from festering unchecked. I learned that loyalty isn't always about keeping secrets or preserving appearances. True loyalty is about standing for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it risks everything you thought you knew about family. And now, as I reflect, I hope anyone who finds themselves holding a painful truth understands this: don't let fear dictate your silence. Protecting someone's comfort over their right to know the truth isn't kindness, it's betrayal.